It was the kind of night that crept under your skin, a cold, damp fog hanging in the air, making everything feel unnervingly quiet. Alex, a seasoned bus driver, had been assigned to the night shift on a route he had never heard of before, Route 66B. Odd, since he knew the city like the back of his hand. But this route snaked through a desolate part of town he'd never ventured into, a forgotten area where even streetlights seemed reluctant to glow. When he arrived at the depot, the dispatcher gave him an unreadable look but said nothing. Alex grabbed his keys and climbed into his bus. The silence was thick, only broken by the soft hiss of air as the doors closed behind him. He started the engine, which rumbled to life like a sleeping beast. The radio crackled, distorting as he adjusted it, only to get static in return. Shrugging, Alex pulled out onto the road. The first few miles were uneventful, the bus gliding through the empty streets with only the occasional car passing by. But as he turned onto an old, cracked road, the cityscape began to fade. The buildings became fewer and farther between, eventually giving way to empty lots and darkened alleyways. That's when his first passenger boarded. Alex stopped the bus at a small, crooked sign that barely resembled a bus stop. A man, thin and gaunt, stepped onto the bus. His face was pale, too pale, and his eyes were dark hollows that barely reflected the dim light inside the bus. He said nothing, simply dropped his fare into the box and sat down at the back of the bus. Alex couldn't help but glance at the rearview mirror. The man was motionless, not even the faintest rise and fall of breath. Shaking it off, Alex continued driving. Minutes later, another passenger. This one, a woman. She looked young, but her face was equally pale, and her eyes empty. She too remained silent, paying her fare and sitting in the middle of the bus, staring blankly at the seat in front of her. One by one, more passengers boarded, all in the same eerie, ghostly manner. None of them spoke, none of them blinked. The bus was filled with a stifling silence, broken only by the sound of the engine and the occasional creak of the seats as the passengers adjusted themselves slightly. Alex's unease grew with each stop. His hands tightened around the wheel. As the bus rolled deeper into the night, something strange happened. The landscape outside the window didn't change. No matter how far he drove, the scenery remained the same. Twisted, leafless trees and cracked sidewalks. He felt as if he was driving in circles, yet his GPS showed he was on track. Sweat started to bead on his forehead, and he found himself glancing nervously at the passengers, all of whom sat unnaturally still. Suddenly, one of them, a middle-aged man sitting closest to the door, muttered something. It was barely a whisper, but Alex caught the words. "The last stop," he frowned, turning his head. "What did you say?" The man didn't answer. He just stared straight ahead, as did the others. Alex's heart raced. Something wasn't right. He glanced at his route map, but it made no sense. He should have passed several landmarks by now, but everything outside was a blurred, repeating loop of darkness. He slammed his foot on the brake. The bus screeched to a halt. The passengers didn't react, didn't move an inch. "I'm done with this," Alex muttered to himself as he reached for his phone to call dispatch. No signal. The screen showed nothing but static. He tried to open the doors, but the handle jammed. He pulled harder, panic rising in his chest, but the doors stayed shut. The bus was locked. He was trapped inside with these silent, unmoving figures. The radio crackled to life suddenly, a distorted voice barely audible through the static. "Last stop, must arrive." Alex's pulse pounded in his ears. He tried to start the bus again, but the engine roared and died, leaving only eerie silence in its wake. The figures behind him whispered softly, their voices low and ominous. "Last stop, last stop."
Don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell to receive all that is new.